Usually when we picture, the rise of a supreme military commander or the designated heir to a massive nation, we expect someone with this really imposing presence.
Right, a towering figure, someone who just commands a room the second they walk in.
Exactly. We look for that larger-than-life energy, the classic strongman archetype where their sheer physical dominance just sort of mirrors their political power.
Yeah, that's the standard expectation for sure.
But today, we are stepping into a historical reality that completely shatters that expectation. I mean, we're taking a deep dive into a single, recently declassified CIA intelligence report.
That's a fascinating one.
It really is. It's about 15 pages long, dated July 1971, and it's simply titled Leaders of Communist China. And the subject of this dossier is Lin Piao, who was Communist China's enigmatic military commander and ultimately Mao Zedong's chosen heir apparent.
Yeah, and what makes this specific document so incredible is that it's unusually long for a CIA briefing of that era. I mean, it doesn't just list dry facts or troop movements.
Right.
It includes really deep background, heavily speculative comments, and even totally conflicting views from different intelligence specialists who were basically trying to decipher the mechanics of this man's power.
And so our mission on this deep dive is to explore how a physically compromised, seemingly uncharismatic general managed to navigate one of the most volatile, dangerous political landscapes in human history to become the second most powerful man in China.
It's quite the story.
It is. But before we go any further, I do need to make a crucial note for you listening. Because we are opening up a CIA document from 1971, this source material is packed with politically charged content.
Yeah, lots of stuff regarding communist ideology, regime struggles, brutal internal purges.
Exactly. So we want to be absolutely clear right up front. We are not taking sides here. We aren't endorsing any political viewpoints, and we aren't here to judge the ideologies mentioned.
No, not at all.
We are strictly and impartially reporting the contents, the history, and the assessments exactly as they are found within this specific 1971 intelligence document.
Right, we're just acting as a historical lens for the document itself. We're exploring what the Western analysts of the time saw and, trying to understand the incredible paradox they were faced with.
And that paradox is really the perfect hook for this entire story, because the CIA analysts describe Lin Piao as having a pallid image.
They actually explicitly state he was completely devoid of charisma.
Devoid of charisma. So you have to ask, how does a man with no magnetic presence, someone who barely even speaks in public, manage to be named the supreme successor of an entire nation, complete with his own cult of personality?
Well, to understand that staggering contradiction, we really have to look at his foundation as a military tactician.
Right.
His entire political ascent is rooted in his time as a field commander. But more specifically, it's rooted in a single catastrophic event that forced him to change his entire approach to leadership.
So let's start from the beginning then, because Lin's origins certainly do not scream future supreme leader.
No, they really don't.
He was born in 1907 in Hubei province to a pretty petty landowner. His father ran a small felt factory that actually failed, and Lin later ended up working as a purser on a river steamer.
Yeah, he came from very modest beginnings, but, he was born into a rapidly shifting world. He was introduced to communism by his older cousin, a man named Lin Yunan.
And he was quite a bit older.
Yeah, about 20 years older, and a founding figure in the local communist movement. So that family connection sparked a trajectory that moved incredibly fast.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, by 1925, Lin Piao was attending the Whampoa Military Academy, which was a crucial training ground for the era's military elite. And by 1926, he overtly joins the Chinese Communist Party.
And his military career just takes off like a rocket from there. I mean, he survives the Nanchang Mutiny in 1927.
Which is huge.
Right. The CIA report actually notes this event as the literal birth and simultaneous first defeat of the People's Liberation Army, or the PLA. It was a total baptism by fire.
Yeah, and under the command of Chu Tai, Lin quickly evolves into this brilliant field general. He's leading massive armies in his early 20s.
In his early 20s? That's wild.
I know, right? He's building this huge reputation as a tactical genius during the Long March and the Yan'an days. He really earned a reputation as the soldier's soldier.
Okay.
He was a master of battlefield preparation, known for his meticulous planning and really sharp tactical mind.
But then we hit that pivotal turning point you mentioned.
Exactly. In early 1938, Lin receives an incapacitating wound. seemingly to his chest.
And it's so severe that he is removed from the battlefield entirely. He gets sent to the Soviet Union for 3 full years of medical treatment.
Right, which is a massive interruption.
Mm.
I mean, while his peers are fighting the Japanese and laying the groundwork for the future of the nation, he is stuck in a hospital bed in another country.
And the report notes he never fully recovers, right? He suffers from recurring ill health for the rest of his life, spending a lot of the 1940s doing lighter duty and much of the 1950s in partial retirement.
That's right.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. If we think of Lin as a star athlete who suffers a massive career-ending injury right in his prime, how does he still end up running the entire franchise?
Yeah, so that's a great way to put it.
Right. I mean, imagine a brilliant architect who suddenly loses the ability to visit the construction site. He can't physically oversee the work anymore, so he has to completely rewrite how the blueprints are drawn up so the building basically builds itself. How does a general who can't physically lead from the front end up running the entire military apparatus?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the CIA analysts debated this exact question vigorously.
Oh, I bet.
Because of his long absences and frail health, some Western observers painted him as this frail and bumbling caricature. They assumed his poor health meant he was weak.
But the report disagrees.
Yes, the intelligence dossier insists that view is a massive oversimplification. They argue he possessed immense inner strength, compensating for his physical weakness with sheer mental endurance.
So he basically took that physical limitation and turned it into a deeply psychological strategic advantage.
That is the key. Because he didn't have the physical stamina to be the loud, table-pounding general riding on horseback, he became a master of what the CIA calls deceptive inactivity.
Deceptive inactivity.
Right. He would disappear, rest, let his opponents underestimate him, meticulously plan in the background, and then execute sudden, overwhelming lightning moves.
Wow. I mean, if nobody sees you coming, nobody can prepare for your attack.
Exactly.
And as we move into the late 1950s and 1960s, he applies this exact battlefield strategy to the political arena. He realizes he can't rely on physical stamina to control the military bureaucracy, so he completely reshapes the army itself.
He pivots from a conventional military structure to a pure ideological takeover.
And when does that happen?
The opportunity for that takeover comes in September 1959, when he replaces Peng Dehuai as Minister of Defense. Once Lin is in charge of the PLA, he doesn't just focus on weapons training or tactical maneuvers. He initiates a total paradigm shift.
Right, he introduces those new doctrines.
Yeah, doctrines with these distinctively Maoist names, the Four Firsts, the Five Good Soldier, and the Four Goods.
The Four Firsts really illustrate this shift, I think, because the doctrine prioritizes the human situation over weapons, political work over other types of work, ideological work over routine political work, and living ideas over books.
He is essentially telling the military, you must be read before you are expert.
Absolute ideological devotion is suddenly more important than whether or not you can shoot straight.
Yeah, it transformed the PLA from a purely professional, combat-ready force focused on foreign enemies into a highly politicized instrument designed for internal control.
Okay, I have to push back on the logic of this military strategy, though.
Oh, sure.
Because the report details that by 1965, he makes the extreme move of completely abolishing ranks within the People's Liberation Army.
He does.
Wait, abolishing ranks in the military? Think about the sheer logistics of that. That sounds like getting rid of all management titles in a massive, high-stakes multinational corporation and expecting everyone to just naturally know who is in charge during a crisis. How does that not lead to total command chaos?
Well, on the surface, if your goal is fighting a conventional war against a foreign adversary, it does sound like a recipe for disaster. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to view this through the lens of political survival.
Okay.
Abolishing ranks wasn't about making the army better at fighting. It was about stripping away the inherent authority of professional career officers who might resist political indoctrination.
Oh, I see. So if you are a general with a formalized rank, you have a shield. You have institutional power. But without a rank to protect you, you are entirely dependent on your current political standing.
Exactly. Which makes it incredibly easy to execute politically motivated personnel changes.
Because you don't have to formally demote them.
Right? You don't risk a backlash. You just remove a man who lacks, quote, ideological purity. Lin successfully transformed the PLA into a fiercely loyal, highly malleable tool designed specifically for Mao's domestic use.
And that newly forged tool was about to be swung like a sledgehammer. because this politicized army becomes the blunt instrument for the Cultural Revolution.
Oh, absolutely.
Lin publishes an article in September 1965 called On People's War, which essentially sets the stage. And when the Cultural Revolution officially launches, Lin uses the PLA to actively support Mao's purge of the old Communist Party establishment.
He completely steps out of his deceptive inactivity here. He is suddenly up there speaking at massive Red Guard rallies throughout 1966 and 1967.
Fueling an incredible destructive fervor across the country.
Yeah, he is weaponizing the youth and the military simultaneously.
But, chaos always has a way of spiraling. You can't start a massive fire and expect it to only burn the things you want it to burn.
Very true.
The chaos of the Cultural Revolution quickly spiraled entirely out of control, culminating in a terrifying moment in July 1967 known as the Wuhan Incident.
The Wuhan incident was a massive crisis that really tested Lin's entire system. Basically, radical leftists from Peking traveled to Wuhan to push the revolution forward. But the local regional military commander, a man named Chen Tao, essentially said, enough.
He reacted against the radicals.
Right. The local military and civilian factions clashed violently, mutiny was in the air, and the entire structure of the PLA was threatening to fracture.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because look at the incredible tension of that moment. Lin has spent years building this ideological machine. He let it loose on the country to purge his rivals.
Yeah.
But when that same machine threatens to tear his military apart at Wuhan, he is forced into a brutal pivot. He actually authorizes the PLA to suppress the very local radical turmoil that he helped instigate in the first place.
It was an impossible tightrope walk. And the CIA report explicitly notes that his treatment of the PLA during this time was reprehensible by Western standards of intra-organizational loyalty.
Reprehensible. Wow.
Yeah. To survive, Lin was purging his own senior officers, throwing fiercely loyal men under the bus to appease the radical factions in Peking, and then turning around and using the army to crush those same radicals when they went too far and threatened military cohesion.
I mean, so many old guard leaders were purged, publicly humiliated, or worse during this period. The political mortality rate was staggering. So how did Lin Piao orchestrate all of this backstabbing, suppression, and appeasement without getting destroyed by the very fires he was setting?
Well, the intelligence analysts point to two distinct survival mechanisms. First, his extreme adaptability. Lin knew exactly when to deploy aggressive flair to appease Mao's radical vision and when to quickly disengage, offer self-criticism, and retreat into the shadows.
So he was taking his old guerrilla battlefield tactics, striking hard and then vanishing and using them in Politburo meetings.
Exactly. And the second mechanism is deeply personal. It involves the strategic delegation of power to his wife, Yichen.
Oh, right, his wife.
Yeah, as Lin's workload became immense and his health remained fragile, Yichen emerged as a major political power in her own right. By 1969, she isn't just a supportive spouse, she's actually sitting on the Politburo herself.
Wow.
She is managing a staff office, acting as his primary gatekeeper, and serving as his political enforcer. She was the operational engine handling the daily friction, which allowed Lin to maintain his aura of distant, untouchable authority.
And the ultimate reward for managing all this chaos, for purging his rivals and successfully weaponizing the army for Mao, was the absolute top prize.
The succession.
Right. At the 9th CCP Congress in April 1969, Lin Piao's victory is finalized. He is officially legally written into the party constitution as Mao Zedong's sole successor. He has reached the absolute peak of the mountain.
He secured the title. But as the 1971 CIA report reveals, with absolute power came absolute paranoia. And this leads us to the bizarre enigma that the intelligence analysts were desperately trying to decode.
Because immediately following this ultimate triumph, after being named the heir to a nation of hundreds of millions of people, Lin effectively vanishes.
Poof, gone.
Yeah, from June 1969 to May 1971, he almost entirely disappears from the public eye. He only pops up for massive, mandatory events like May Day rallies or to fulfill unavoidable diplomatic duties like meeting with foreign clients.
And this 2-year vanishing act deeply divided the CIA analysts. The document outlines two fiercely conflicting views within the intelligence community regarding Lin's actual prospects as the successor.
Okay, let's look at the first view. If I'm reading this through a traditional political lens, this vanishing act screams weakness. I mean, you finally get the top spot, and your first move is to hide.
Right, it looks bad.
This perspective argues that his disappearance proves he lacked real support among the regional PLA commanders outside of Peking. It suggests he severely alienated the military professionals during the purges of the Cultural Revolution, leaving him isolated.
Yeah, and overly dependent on his chief of staff, a man named Huang Yongsheng. The logic here is that if Huang fell from grace, Lin would instantly fall with him because Lin had no foundation of his own.
That makes sense based on conventional power dynamics.
It does, but the opposing intelligence view flips that logic entirely on its head.
How so?
The second view argues that his disappearance actually proves he is incredibly strong. Remember the abolition of ranks and the intense ideological training.
Oh, the four firsts and all that.
Exactly. This perspective suggests Lin had successfully built a decentralized network of fiercely loyal lieutenants. Because his men were bound by ideology rather than rigid military hierarchy, they didn't need daily orders from him.
Ah,
They could act independently on his behalf during his long absences, leaving his power base perfectly secure while he rested.
so we have two totally conflicting reads from the same intelligence agency. One says he's hiding because he's terrified and weak. The other says he's resting because his system is flawless and strong.
Yeah.
So what does this actually mean for you, the listener, trying to make sense of this? Imagine finally getting the ultimate promotion you've worked decades for. You outlasted all your rivals, you have it put in writing, and your very first move is to go work from home, turn your camera off, and stop answering everyone's calls for 2 years.
It's wild when you put it like that.
It defies all common sense for a newly crowned heir to hide in the shadows.
Well, this raises an important question, and it brings us to the psychological wild card that the CIA report touches on explicitly: Mao's innate jealousy.
Right.
In an authoritarian system, being the designated successor is often the most dangerous job in the country. Mao had just spent the entire Cultural Revolution systematically destroying anyone who threatened his absolute supremacy.
So if Lin Piao, the new successor, started acting like a vibrant, charismatic leader in waiting, if he started building his own independent political brand and shining too brightly, he would instantly transition from being Mao's loyal servant to being Mao's greatest threat.
And in that regime, becoming a threat to Mao meant you didn't survive, period.
Yeah.
So Lin's austere, pleasureless withdrawal wasn't just a byproduct of his physical sickness, and it wasn't laziness. It was a highly calculated performance of survival.
Wow.
By remaining a pallid image, by intentionally staying out of the spotlight and letting his wife handle the daily accumulation of power, he was projecting complete subservience. He was constantly reassuring Mao that he was no threat, just an invisible, frail servant patiently waiting for his time.
That is a staggering psychological tightrope. Let's pull all of this together to see the full picture. We started with a young revolutionary, radicalized by his cousin in the 1920s.
Yeah.
He becomes a brilliant, aggressive field commander who is heavily wounded in battle. He realizes he can no longer lead from the front, so he completely reinvents himself as an ideological architect.
He weaponizes the military bureaucracy, abolishing ranks to strip away professional independence, and turns the army into the ideological hammer of the Cultural Revolution.
And then he survives the ensuing chaos by delegating operational control to his wife and knowing exactly when to retreat from the political front line.
Exactly.
He secures the ultimate title, Mao's constitutional successor, only to mysteriously fade into the background to avoid triggering the paranoia of the man who put him there. It is a profound lesson in survival.
It really is.
For you listening, think about that level of extreme adaptability. Lin's story shows that sometimes the willingness to completely shift your entire leadership style, abandoning the role of the frontline hero to become the behind-the-scenes ideologue, is the only way to survive in a highly volatile, unpredictable environment.
It is the ultimate application of strategy to personal survival. You adapt your shape entirely to fit the dangerous container you are forced into, no matter how much it contradicts your past.
Which brings us back to that central paradox we started with. The man with no charisma, the invisible heir, ruling from the shadows. As we close out today's deep dive into this 1971 dossier, there is a final, chilling question we want to leave you to ponder on your own.
And it is the exact question the intelligence analysts themselves were wrestling with as they finalized this report.
The CIA dossier notes that Lin's lifelong signature tactic was deceptive inactivity followed by lightning moves.
Right.
Given his incredibly precarious position in July 1971 as the hidden, frail heir to an aging, fiercely jealous and paranoid leader, if Lin Piao were sitting in the dark right then, planning one final lightning move, would he use it to patiently secure his succession and outlast Mao? Or would he use it to strike at the leader himself before he could be replaced?
A fascinating, dangerous thought to leave on.
Something to mull over until next time. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the shadows of history.